All right, everyone, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for the 33rd annual The Hartford Virtual Ski Spectacular's Alpine Skiing Dryland Basics. My name is Bree Podgorski, and I'm the Athlete Engagement Senior Coordinator with Move United, formerly Disabled Sports USA and Adaptive Sports USA. We would like to thank the Hartford for their long-standing commitment and support, allowing us to bring you this virtual opportunity. Before we get started, I'd like to go over some housekeeping items. All attendees will be on mute to minimize distractions, but please feel free to turn on your video using the camera button or start video at the bottom of your screen. These sessions will be recorded, so if you don't want your video to be shown or if you haven't signed your media release yet, please feel free to hide your video. You can sign your media release in the link found in the chat that we'll share in a moment. Closed caption for the session is enabled, and attendees are welcome to adjust the font size as needed. And if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. Depending on time, we'll try to get to them at the end. But if not, we're collecting them all and we'll be sharing them with Jason, and we'll be sharing his answers with our follow-up communication. Make sure to send your chat message to all panelists and attendees to introduce yourself to the whole group. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jason Moore to let him introduce himself.
Great, I think I'm on now. Does that sound okay? And I apologize for the echo, everyone. I'm in a yoga studio and it's quite sparse in here, so bear with me and we'll try to keep it so everybody can understand, and lots of things to talk about. But first I definitely would love to thank the Hartford and for sure Move United. This crew I know does a tremendous amount of work to make this happen, and this year, a lot of curveballs, and I think a lot of folks really did a lot of great work to make it happen again, even though we're not right here where I'd like to be up in the Imperial Bowl at the end of the week. I'm thrilled that we could actually come together and do some things over a virtual platform. And really quick before I forget, congratulations, Jesse, Preston, and Will on the equipment allocation that you received. One of my favorite moments of all time, and I think a lot of people would agree, at Ski Spec was the first year that was the program had started and the awards were made in the tent outside there at the bottom of Beaver Run. And that's what Ski Spec is all about. Hard work, great support, and an amazing week on snow. And hopefully that's going to be the case next year at this time. Just a little bit about myself, and I think what's interesting is a lot of this kind of rings true with how I got started in adaptive sports, being an able-bodied person. And I use that term able-bodied kind of loosely. I think we're just all differently abled. There's lots of things that adaptive athletes, quote unquote, do that I sure as heck can't do. So I'm just gonna put myself in one big category of differently abled individuals. My name is Jason Moore. I'm here in Montana, Bozeman, Montana, where it's still morning. So good morning to those in the West, and good afternoon to those that are passing the noon mark here shortly. I've been involved in ski racing, skiing and ski racing all my life, and came up through youth programs, right up through the college level, skied competitively at college. And that's where I kind of first got my notion of what adaptive athletics could and should be, in my view. A couple of quick stories. I was coaching at the college that I had graduated from, and I became the director of skiing at a small school in Vermont. And through this opportunity, not only was I able to continue as a coach, which is a great gift back to a sport when you finish as a participant in the sport, I met some amazing individuals. Living in a very able-bodied world and scenario, at that point, my life of alpine ski racing was very much an able-bodied experience. As I became a coach and a program director at this college, I had an individual come up to me in that spring, and in the fall when he started as a freshman, and said, "Hey, I'd like to participate with you guys and be on the team possibly." And this young fella named Josh had a pretty severe case of cerebral palsy, and I consider myself pretty open-minded, pretty broad thinking. At that point, I had never really come across this scenario. And so Josh was pretty persistent, and I thought, okay, if you come to some dryland training sessions, come to some conditioning sessions, and we will kind of see how this goes. And I thought, in my mind, some participation here and there, helping out where possible. What could we do to help out? And it would kind of maybe form its own kind of trajectory. And as soon as he showed up for the first day at dryland training, I was like, okay, let's change this mindset. This guy's serious. He was out there working harder, if not harder, than any of the able-bodied athletes that were out there, and very effective in his conditioning endeavors. Brilliant in the soccer field, unstoppable as goalie, working hard day in and day out, suffering lots of injuries because through the cerebral palsy and spasticity, he was, not always upright. He was trying so hard, he would take some spills and spend a lot of time in the training room. But this was like a great experience for me, seeing that Josh Stockwell was, a person who is just going to be a bright shining star on our team. Then the travel scenario came up, and that's when I turned the corner and really became an advocate of ski racing and adaptive athletes. Josh had come from a program in Connecticut, ski raced there. We came up ski racing at the college level, at the level we were training and racing at. It was a pretty serious endeavor. A lot of Americans, a lot of Europeans on the team, some of the best absolute skiers in the country at that time at the collegiate level, which also can translate to high-level skiers when compared to national and international competition. So Josh came to the races. He participated in the races under the Diana Golden Rule, which is a rule in able-bodied racing where the athlete can be seated in after the 16th place and after the 32nd place in a seed, or if their adaptive points are better, whichever scenario favors the better start position, that athlete can use. It was awesome. Josh raced all our able-bodied races. If he did not get to a race, he was very noticeably missed. And a lot of folks out there throw out the word inspiration. For sure, Josh was an incredible inspiration. But that term has kind of gotten construed over time. And to me, inspiration means a long-standing effect on an individual. If someone's inspired by something, they mention it, but it really doesn't come back into their conversation or their mindset for a long time. Were they really truly inspired? Josh constantly was inspiring myself, fellow athletes, people on the hill, people in that racing conference that carried it through the whole season and carried it into other endeavors after that. And that was extremely important in the sense that it inspired a movement within me, a movement within the team, and was a great foray for me into adaptive ski racing. Real quickly, the second element to this, a conditioning scenario that came up a few years after that, another great athlete that I worked with, Betsy Hurley, if you're on there watching from Vermont. I was working at a small ski area in Vermont, Bromley Mountain, and there was a adaptive center they're called the Bart Ruggieri Adaptive Center that Betsy's dad ran. Betsy was a phenomenal skier, smooth, fun to watch, like dancing on snow. But she also was ready for the next step, the next kind of thing to push her skiing to another level. And she said, yeah, I want to try this. I want to try some training. And it was a really easy transition from an adaptive program into an able-bodied training scenario. Easy at times, not always easy at others. It's based on schedules and timing, but when you work together with programs, it can be done pretty easily. Anyway, so Betsy asked me to come with her to a conditioning camp at Lake Placid, New York. And I went there as a brand new person into the kind of Paralympic, US Olympic Committee realms of people and coaches and athletes. And of course, I came away with another jumpstart and motivation to be more and more involved in the adaptive sports world, whether it was on snow, off snow, conditioning, recreating in a lot of different environments. Fast forward a little bit more, started to get out to ski spec. Now I think I'm getting into the double digits as far as years attending, maybe a little bit beyond. And I've always said this at our meetings in the team room, and I've said this to just about everybody locally here in Montana and within my family and friends, that this week is by far the best week of skiing for me throughout the whole year. It's the kickoff. It is a meeting of minds, of souls, of people that are just so interested in doing the similar things, sliding on snow, different capacities, different tools, different equipment, but it is really, truly one of the best weeks that I will have in the next 51 weeks. Hopefully, we will be back on snow soon. Another great event is in Stowe in Vermont. That's my second favorite week of the year. Another adaptive national camp up at Stowe. Anyway, so now I'm in Montana, based out of Montana, and I work with a number of different ski areas. I get to bounce around a little bit. Bridger Bowl, Big Sky, Yellowstone Club. You know, on a geographic basis, we don't have a huge amount of adaptive athletes, but there are some, and there's a lot of folks that don't know about programs. So that's what we're going to kind of delve into now a little bit. In the description of this webinar or workshop, as we may want to call it, it talked about some really basic, broad-based terms and questions. I know I'm speaking to an audience that's probably maybe some never-evers. People have not been in a skiing, snowboarding, Nordic skiing or alpine environment before. Many have. Many have maybe heard some of these things I've talked about in the past, but hopefully it's a good reminders. But if we just sit back and break things down a little bit, what is alpine skiing? In its very primitive form, it's basically sliding on frozen water down a mountain. And this concept is pretty daunting, but it is amazing, especially at ski spec, when people accomplish and conquer this concept. When you're hiking up a mountain in the summer, say it's a ski area or a trail near home or things like that, you really can sense the terrain, the geography, the topography, the energy it takes to do it, the steep climbs, the out of breath feeling, the feeling of conquering a great height at some point, hopefully. But then, you know, when I parallel that with skiing on the same terrain, it's really, really awesome. It's really impressive. You know, the flow, the freedom, the adrenaline, and how we can actually come down in a controlled capacity through the same area that we probably hiked, you know, maybe a few times before. That really was like, you know, on your hands and knees kind of scratching to get up some steep spots. You know, I look at skiing itself as a combination of an art and a science. Everybody has their own individual personal expression on the hill, and we're all using technique and forces of nature and very scientific ways to accomplish these goals. Now, when you transfer skiing or other winter sports, I'm not just a skiing enthusiast. I love snowboarding. You know, Cap Reggie, I love you guys. When you look at the Nordic side, that is, you know, a fabulous way to you know, stay conditioned. You know, they call us yo-yos sometimes as alpine skiers. We're lift riders. We go right up and ski down, right up, ski down. Well, when you earn your turn sometimes too, say in alpine touring, that is another great way, aspect of skiing, earning turns. So then we shift over to what is alpine racing. And this is a great concept that is hopefully new to many people out there. And hopefully, what I really would like is a whole panel of my colleagues here to help do this, because there'd be so much information that I will miss, but I will do my best. Alpine racing is a really fantastic way to really hit home and improve recreational skiing skills. When people go to Hartford Ski Spectacular, they go through learn to ski programs, learn to ride programs, and they are shown and given tremendous amount of tools, a tremendous amount of instruction. Instruction that is geared towards very, dissertations on what skiing and the mechanics and the dynamics and the methodologies. They are given visuals, watching an instructor, watching a coach perform a drill or skill to try to emulate. They are giving hands-on experience. It's their turn to try this task at hand. When we move into the Alpine racing part of it, it's very similar in scope in that there is a lot of verbal instruction, lots of tying things in to what has been previously learned in a recreational environment. There is lots of drills and skills. There is lots of terrain analysis. Is it a flat pitch? Is it a steep pitch? Is it a side hill? Is there blind spots? Is this a place to put on the brakes? Is it a place to let it go? The transition from recreational to ski racing is a critical spot where an athlete that is in a recreational program has kind of come to what's considered an intermediate phase in their learning process. Skiing blue runs pretty consistently. Doesn't have to be a black diamond skier to be a ski racer. That's a pretty good indication on a skill level where that athlete can transition to some racing tactics and techniques. Independence, a little bit of independence is helpful. I know that in a lot of adaptive equipment, that's some of the hardest parts of the day are just getting outside on the hill, getting back inside at the end of the day, and getting on and off the lifts. The freedom really comes when you are on the snow and pretty much independent and free from the man-made objects all around you. So then transitioning, a blue intermediate skier comes along, and the methodologies used in ski racing and in training for ski racing is super helpful to the recreational athlete in that turn shape is heavily discussed. Courses are set and drill courses are set that are designed to have people turn in specific spots versus choosing where they want to turn. In learning, I find a lot with younger athletes that coursework, drill courses, things like that are super effective in speed control. It's very common for new skiers and riders and younger athletes to go fast and stop abruptly, go fast and stop abruptly. It's that fight or flight mechanism takes over, and hopefully those stops are controlled stops, but a lot of times maybe they aren't controlled stops, and there is a safety factor in there. That's why I love Alpine training, race training, because there's a couple things that, that we are fortunate to get in many cases. One is a venue that is closed off to the general public for training purposes. This limits errant skiers and riders from coming into that spot, and potentially, and also just the crowds that can occur on a publicly open run. We all know this at Breckenridge. We get a great gift from Breckenridge in early season skiing and training. Lots of terrain. They work hard to get it open. That time of year, traffic is minimal. It's midweek, it's perfect. But even with the Alpine training part of it, we get a run to ourselves. We get to set up drills and learn a lot of skills. Speed control, safety. It's one of the biggest things we can learn, because when you take out the factor of fight or flight, you get the opportunity to really absorb information and really to have some of these technical ideas and concepts sink in and continue to think about them as you're going out throughout the day and throughout the process. One of the biggest challenges, and I think a lot of coaches will agree with this, and instructors on a recreational side of things, is timeframes. We really struggle a lot of times with enough time to do what we really want to do. I've always been an advocate, and I think ski spec should be probably a month long, but I know that's logistically and financially and the resource allocation not possible. But we do a lot in a short period of time, and hopefully through that process, people can take home what is given to them in this very fast approach with a lot of ideas and a lot of skills, and they can go work on that with their coaches at home. Mastery of skill is critical. And in programs where you have a full season or seasons, because mastery doesn't wrap up after a year. Mastery is through all phases of an athlete's development, and from age development and maturation and things like that. But simply a carved turn, mastering a carved turn is a lifetime adventure. Mastering a pole plan, mastering upper body and lower body separation is a lifetime goal. But the challenge really lies, and from a coaching point of view, lies in mastering a skill to move on to the next skill and be able to, put one skill in the back seat and address a new skill up front, taking the time to do that. Along these lines of the crossover of adaptive sports to able-bodied sports, vice versa, is an area that I've spent a lot of time on, talked to a lot of people across the nation at different programs and in different geographical, scenarios, whether they have a large population base to pull from or a small population base to pull from, is incorporating adaptive athletes into able-bodied programs. I think this is a really critical area that some people are concerned about the possibilities. And I really want to impress upon coaches that are out there listening, and even athletes that are listening, that this is a great opportunity. And I've never seen it not succeed when it's gone about in a way that works for everybody that's involved. A lot of people think that, okay, we have to have a number of resources that are going to be different. We have to recreate the wheel. We have to allocate different space. We have to do this, this, and this. And really, that is not the case. That is definitely not the case. If you're training a group of able-bodied U14s and U16s and high school age kids, it's perfectly fine to have an adaptive athlete in that environment. There may be some adjustments based on the athlete's ability, but this happens in the able-bodied world all the time. You may have an older, newer athlete to the sport that will actually train with a younger group of kids, possibly, trying to keep the social dynamics intact. But for safety and for productivity in that lesson, you need to start. People come into this sport at all ages. They can't just jump into a World Cup course set right away. They need to go into a fundamental course set. They need to go into a drill course set. Athletes at the very highest level, whether they are adaptive or able-bodied, are doing very simple drills and skills throughout the entire year to maintain that level of proficiency. You'll see World Cup athletes, on the adaptive or the able-bodied side in the spring going right back to balance, edging, rotary movements, things like that are really, you forget when you train. And many athletes overtrain. When you train constantly, you're only typically reinforcing some of those bad habits that have surfaced over the course of the athlete's career. So in short, I really would like to encourage people out there, if you are an athlete that doesn't really know how to approach a program, somebody that you are chatting with, whether you're an instructor in the recreational program, will know somebody, either directly or through somebody else, that is involved in a racing program, whether at your home mountain or at another location. So reach out. If it's a curiosity, please reach out to who you are spending time with on the hill. They will know somebody. As a coach, approaching another coach on the hill can sometimes be, depending on personalities. In the coaching world, there are some people that, egos can prevail sometimes. But with a very, careful interaction with somebody, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a positive interaction. And that joining of able-bodied and athletic athletes is only going to be a positive experience in the end. And I say inspirational again, but I mean inspiration for a long, sustained period of time. Right here in Montana at Bridger Bowl, we work with Eagle Mount. Eagle Mount is a Move United chapter, and we do an adaptive race. it started out as myself solely would put on the race. I would set up the timing, set up the course, set up the venue, set up the finish, and do the awards. And I'd have a parent from our program do the timekeeping. Over time, this has morphed into a joint effort between the able-bodied program and the adaptive program, in that the able-bodied program now puts on the race for the adaptive athletes. It gives a great insight into the sport for all athletes. When you actually have to set courses, have to put up venues, things like this, it gives you a really good inside view of safety. It gives you a good inside view of what is going to translate into your skiing when you look at a course set. And it gives that camaraderie. And when I say camaraderie, skiing, back to what is alpine skiing, it is a cultural sport that is probably like no other that I can really think of. It's a lifelong sport. It is the level of camaraderie. And I think this is one aspect of Ski Spec that those that have attended, especially in the race room. I mean, I think it's all over the mountain, but I'm obviously exposed to the race room most often. The camaraderie, the sense of family is very prevalent amongst staff, amongst athletes, amongst parents that are there, amongst sponsors. It is a pretty remarkable experience, in that this sport, I think, is one of those sports that really is hard to compare to another sport. I know with COVID nowadays, the actual ability to explore other areas, other mountains, is going to be limited, but that's another great aspect of the sport. You can be in Vermont skiing in that environment. You can be in another place skiing in another environment, but hopefully that will change soon. Just going back
Jason,
really
I'm gonna jump in real quick just to give you a 3-minute warning for any wrap up or close up thoughts. We're approaching 2 o'clock.
I thought it was till 12:15. I'm sorry. Okay, I will wrap up here. Okay, so I know there are some concerns about ski areas right now and what's going to happen through this winter. There's things about adaptive equipment that I'd love to talk about some more. Types of adaptive equipment, but those can be really explored through chapters close to your mountain. Whatever's going to help facilitate and kind of make you whole in that experience on the hill, to add in the right ski, the right snowboard, things like that. I've talked to a number of folks throughout the country, ski area management, ski area presidents. Every state has got a little different program. Montana, I think what's really you're going to see a lot of this year is people staying within their state to ski. Going across state borders is challenging because many states are requiring 7 to 14 day quarantine periods. 7 days if you have a negative test, recent negative test. 14 days if you're asymptomatic. And but then who's going to be able to go from Connecticut up to Vermont and wait 2 weeks to ski for a weekend, come home, and it's really going to be pretty challenging. So I think there's going to be a big, in a kind of silver lining, in the fact that people will be able to stay at their home mountain and kind of reconnect with home programs, things like that. I know in Montana, we have a little bit more of an advantage in that a lot of Montanans are staying in Montana. It's not easy to go from state to state here. So I think the requirements, the contact tracing is a little bit looser, but there's things like, lift line corrals that are going to be very different. Getting on snow is going to be very different. Many people are going to be getting their gear on outside of their car and avoiding base lodges altogether, avoiding bathrooms, avoiding food service. Skiing, I think the actual active skiing is going to be fantastic still. What a better way to social distance and be covered up from head to toe. And then I think there's going to be, some definitely considerations for numbers on the hill. Some people are doing reservations for day tickets. Some people have limited seasons passes. Check in with your home areas, see what's going on if you haven't already. Some areas are open. But we'll get through this. And I think a lot of people are, very unsure about this season, but I think we are in a place where this could be a good thing for our sport in the sense we're going to get back to kind of some basics. I think I might be running out of time. It's just till 12, not 12:15?
We can go a little bit over. We understand that if anyone needs to jump off, it does say till 2 on all the schedules.
Okay.
But we do have a little leeway if you want to keep going a little,
All
Jason.
right, I'll just, if people want to hang out there just for a little bit, this will lead into tomorrow's session a little bit with conditioning aspects. As new athletes to the sport of skiing, conditioning should be very basic. You know, as you get into, you may be part of another sport already, whether it's on snow, off snow, that's at a high level. So many people may know the phases of high level athletics, but as far as skiing goes, you know, you can look at the big picture from a 10,000 foot macro level. You know, you have your end of the season where you would do what's called an active recovery, do lots of what you like to do for the month of April, for the month of May. Do your biking, your hiking, your erg training, your hand cycling, all these great things. Then in mid to late summer, you're going to be really transitioning to a power and an anaerobic phase, lots of sprints, lots of power moves, lots of strength moves. Then it's easier to maintain strength over a long period of time than it is to maintain aerobic conditioning. If you are a big aerobic athlete, you know that after 2 weeks of movement, you may be losing some of that aerobic capacity. So strength, anaerobic, power over the course of the summer, transitioning into aerobic throughout the late summer and fall, and then maintenance. You know, your strength can kind of taper off a little bit and do, you know, less strength sessions, but maintaining your aerobic right into ski season. A lot of people think that when they're skiing that, you know, the conditioning can stop, but you will definitely see from any level of athlete, whether they're recreational skiers or high level racers at any adaptive or able-bodied program, they're gassed at the end of the season. They are struggling to maintain those long courses, those long days on snow. So maintenance throughout the winter is critical. There's got to be a strength component, and there also has to be an aerobic component. After a hard day of skiing, lots of drills and skills, your body is going to be full of lactic acid. Getting on a spin bike at the end of the day, just for 15 minutes, will help flush that lactic acid out, get you more prepped for the next day. And then doing some strength conditioning on days when the next day there's not a huge demand.
Right.
You're gonna, you know, have muscle damage, which is part of muscle building. You need a day, you need 24 hours, 48 hours for that to repair, to get back into, you know. So when you know there's a day or two off, that's when you can do a strength session before that's the on-hill session starts again. Body symmetry is critical, especially in the adaptive world. You know, I shouldn't say that. It's critical in anybody. Myself, able-bodied, adaptive, like I said, we're all differently abled. I have body symmetry issues. I'm definitely stronger on one side than I am on the other. Programs, trainers that are going to be conditioning you, the good programs will really look at this and evaluate what is the weak side, what's the strong side, and really try to work on the strong side and make the body symmetrically balanced. This translates really well into not only recreational skiing, but recreational or racing at any level, in that you're not going to have a course that's going to be all left-hand turns. You're not going to have a course that's going to be all right-hand turns. You're not going to have a hillside that's perfectly flat, and you're going to have off camber. You're going to have double fall lines, pulling to the left, pulling to the right. If I'm a three tracker and I have a left leg above the knee amputation, my left-hand turns probably will be pretty strong. My right-hand turns on my pinky side are going to be a little bit more challenging. And that's where we really got to work on those exercises to strengthen the ankles, the hips, the glutes on that pinky side. And tomorrow I will have Vasu Sojitra here, who is a phenomenal world-class three-track athlete. And he will talk a little bit about that. From folks in sit skis, bike skis, mono skis, you know, core is going to be huge. And you know, body symmetry in that sense as well. And I've got Lizanne coming tomorrow, who's a Pilates instructor and a great athlete on and off snow, who's spends, you know, the majority of her time in mono skis and bi skis and wheelchairs, and how does she do core and things like that. So here at Epic, where I'm at today, they do even electronic analysis of this, where they have folks standing, and if check in with programs near you or health facilities, you can actually stand in your adaptive equipment or if you're an able-bodied person on 2 feet, or even in, I think they're going to try to roll some things out that are even, you can sit in a monoski on a sensor on this board that'll show you, I'm putting a lot of pressure on my right foot right now. I'm putting a lot of pressure on my left foot right now. If I close my eyes, I'm shifting, I'm compensating somewhere. If I'm told to do some basic movement patterns, where am I favoring a certain place that I'm standing? So through adaptive and able body, I just really want to emphasize that body symmetry is going to be very, very critical. Let's see, back to real quickly on equipment adaptations. I think a lot of people out there know what's available, but they don't know how available it might be. Definitely huge expenses involved. When there's a need for a monoski or a biski, adaptive outriggers, snow sliders, snow bikes, things like this are very expensive. But there are places, Challenged Athlete Fund is one great source. A lot of sources out there. This will be listed with Move United on their website too, of different organizations that may have some equipment allocation possibilities. So yeah, I think anything we can do to get folks on the snow and enjoying the winter environment, if the desire is there. One thing I want to talk about, I see a lot of young athletes that, in youth programs where mom and dad want them to do it because they want to do it. I have not seen an adaptive athlete that wanted to try snowboarding or skiing that wasn't there because of the passion to try it and to do it. And that's what's got to be first. The passion to do it, the drive to do it, everything else will come into play with a huge team of people near and far that'll make that happen. So if I can be of any assistance in any way, I'll leave my email address. It's pretty simple. It's just Jason, Jason, J Moore, Moore, Jason J Moore 1, the numeral 1 at gmail.com. Again, I don't know how much time is left. I got another page or two that I could go through, but I don't want to keep people too long. And I just appreciate the opportunity to try to communicate with folks out there. There's a lot of people out there that I wish were here with me to talk more to you, but hopefully these sessions, tomorrow's session, like I said, will be more of a hands-on. We'll incorporate the adapted home kit and a couple of athletes that will really be able to be an authentic visual for folks out there that may have an adaptation in their life. And then even one thing that I'll mention real quickly is with the able-bodied programs, I love to incorporate adaptive scenarios. Simply having an athlete ski with a pair of goggles on that has been covered with duct tape and has a guide. And this is really important that the age is appropriate, but having people experience these things or have a visual impairment guide out there with an athlete, able-bodied, with this kind of blacked out goggle on is a great way to improve able-bodied skiing. Put a dot of duct tape on the very front so peripheral vision is all you see. Or the opposite, bring in the periphery of that goggle really narrow to experience what different levels of visual impairments are like for athletes that are skiing in that capacity. Of course, make sure it's in a safe, wide open space, controlled, fenced off, roped off, and the right age athlete. Incorporating some of the greatest skills for able-bodied skiing are things that we would do as adaptive athletes. One ski skiing is huge. These are things that able-bodied athletes really struggle with. That's why I say these are abilities that are just different. There's so many things. Skiing blind, skiing without vision through a slalom course. Yeah, no, that's very, very difficult. There's a great website, usskiandsnowboard.org, usskiandsnowboard.org. It's our national governing body for ski racing in the US. If you would like some good exercises and some good assessment tools, look up SkillsQuest, SkillsQuest. just Google it or put it in the search bar on USSA or usskiandsnowboard.org, or you can just Google skills quest in your Google search engine, and it'll show you not only on snow skills assessments that are perfectly adaptable to everybody, and it'll also give you a conditioning profile. It's pretty involved, pretty rigorous, but there's ways to adapt that conditioning profile as well, or methodology. Without that, that's all I've got at the moment. I could talk forever. This is my passion. I love it. I wish we were all in the same room and I was answering questions and seeing body language and facial expressions and things like that. But I will save that soon for hopefully 2021. And Bree, you guys, I don't know if there's anything else you need from me. Good to see you guys too, the team.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jason. We are just so appreciative of your longstanding support of Move United and Ski Spec, and we truly couldn't do it without you. So thank you for sharing your insights today and the rest of the week. And thank you all for joining us this afternoon. We truly value your feedback as well. I know that the survey was shared in the chat, but if you could take a few seconds to complete the session survey, that'll appear on your browser when you exit the session. That'd be fantastic. And you can also stay engaged with us and share your favorite ski spec memories or your thoughts throughout the event on social media by using hashtag ski spec. So if you had any questions, please put them in the chat. I'll keep it up for a little bit longer, but we do have to close up soon for another session. And we'll share any questions with Jason and he will get back to us and we'll share it in any follow-up communication.
Happy to, for sure.